United Nations, Reuters. Russia urged hotheads to calm down on Friday as the United States admitted it felt challenged by North Korea's warning that it could test a hydrogen bomb over the Pacific, and President Donald Trump and Kim Jong traded more insults. Trump called the North Korean leader a madman on Friday, a day after Kim dubbed him a mentally deranged U.S. dotard who would face the highest level of hardline countermeasure in history in retaliation for Trump saying the U.S. would totally destroy North Korea if it threatened the U.S. or its allies. "We have to calm down the hotheads," Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told reporters at the United Nations, where world leaders gathered this week for the annual UN General Assembly. "We continue to strive for the reasonable and not the emotional approach of the kindergarten fight between children." U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson expressed hope in an interview with ABC that sanctions and voices from every corner of the world could lead North Korea back to talks, but admitted intensifying rhetoric had left Washington quite challenged. North Korea's Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho warned on Thursday that Kim could consider a hydrogen bomb test of an unprecedented scale over the Pacific. Ri, who was due to speak to the United Nations on Saturday, added that he did not know Kim's exact thoughts. In response, Tillerson said U.S. diplomatic efforts would continue but all military options were still on the table. North Korea's 6 nuclear tests to date have all been underground, and experts say an atmospheric test, which would be the first since one by China in 1980, would be proof of the success of its weapons program. A senior U.S. official, speaking on condition of anonymity, said Washington was taking Kim's threat seriously and added that any atmospheric test would be a game changer. But he said there were questions about North Korea's technical capabilities and Washington did not give too much credence to Pyongyang taking such action. "There's a certain amount of bluster that's taken for granted when you're dealing with North Korea," the official told Reuters. Reuters/Dondito what unacceptable. Pyongyang conducted its 6th and largest nuclear test on September 3 and has launched dozens of missiles this year as it accelerates a program aimed at enabling it to target the United States with a nuclear-tipped missile. Lavrov on Friday again pushed a proposal by Moscow and Beijing for a dual suspension of North Korean weapons tests and the U.S.-South Korean military drills to kickstart talks. Lavrov suggested that a neutral European country could mediate. He described the exchange of insults between the U.S. and North Korean leaders was quite bad, unacceptable. U.S. Treasury and gold prices rose while the Japanese yen strengthened on Friday as the exchange of barbs fueled geopolitical jitters and drove investors into assets considered safer during times of turmoil. The latest round of rhetoric began on Tuesday when Trump, in his first address to the United Nations, made the threat to destroy North Korea, a country of 26 million people. He also called Kim a rocket man on a suicide mission. His remarks have convinced me, rather than frightening or stopping me, that the path I chose is correct and that it is the one I have to follow to the last, Kim said in the statement carried by the North's official KCNA news agency on Friday, promising to make Trump pay dearly for his speech. South Korea said it was the first direct statement of its kind by a North Korean leader. Japan, the only country to suffer an atomic attack, called the North Korean threat to conduct an atmospheric test totally unacceptable. KCNA via Reuters. Madman Trump on Friday tweeted, "Kim Jong-un of North Korea, who is obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his people, will be tested like never before." The White House said on Friday that Trump and South Korean President Moon Jae-in had agreed to Seoul's acquisition and development of highly advanced military assets and to increased deployment of U.S. strategic assets in and around South Korea on a rotational basis. It did not name specific weapons systems. On Thursday Trump announced new U.S. sanctions that he said allows the targeting of companies and institutions that finance and facilitate trade with North Korea. Then when asked if diplomacy was still possible, he said, "Why not?" The additional sanctions on Pyongyang, including on its shipping and trade networks, showed Trump was giving more time for economic pressure to weigh on North Korea. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said banks doing business in North Korea would not be allowed to operate in the United States. KCNA also published rare criticism of official Chinese media, saying comments on North Korea's nuclear program had damaged ties and suggested Beijing, its neighbor,